Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a privilege to work with family advocacy and its subsidiary initiatives. My presentation today has been, and my work generally, has been guided by two people in particular. The woman on the left is my daughter Mina. Mina was born in 1979 and sadly died in 2009, just before her 30th birthday. And on the right is a friend of mine, Susan Hailstone, who I've known for about the same length of time. Susan's now 48, and I'm on her circle of support. I'm also on her as a trustee for her. Both Mina and Susan were, Mina was and Susan is supported by Homes West Association, which is a small family-governed organisation that was established in 1990. So 26 years later, that organisation has been doing what the NDIS is now proclaiming we can all do, and that is to direct, that families direct the supports for their sons and daughters. What Homes West did in 25 years ago was they delegated responsibility to families to design and direct the service for their children. So my talk comes from this experience, and I hope this is useful to you. There are four things I'm going to do today. One is talk about the notion of right relationship between service and families. And I have directed this presentation to families. People in services here today, I'm sure will get something from it, but please accept that fact that I'm actually directing the messages to families. There's a very good reason for this, and that is because now, with the NDIS, families have been offered the responsibility. Families may not take up that responsibility, but now you have the option of taking that responsibility, of directing the service, to deciding the quality of service that you expect, and to plan a good life. It's there now, available to you. The second is I'm going to talk about a 7-step process. So I'm a bit more into how-to in this session. So this is a 7-step process towards right relationship. So it's a bit tasky, but I think it might be useful to some people who need a framework. It's all good to have the big words and the vision and the ideas, but sometimes it's very helpful to have a step-by-step process. The third thing I'm going to do is just share with you a little problem-solving process. I found this very useful. The thing I learned as a family member was that once one problem was resolved, there'd be another one around the corner, and they kept coming, and so I actually became a very good problem solver. And this was a little rule of thumb, a little process I use, so I'm sharing it with you. You needn't take it up if you don't want to. And then the last is, I hope, hopeful for you, but maybe confronting, and that is I'm going to talk about succession planning. Talk about the fact that you will die. Not if you will die, but when you will die, and that there is a process here that I do ask you to take quite seriously. Okay, so let's get going. Now, I talk about right relationship. I use the analogy of a stool, a three-legged stool, and that I believe that service, family and community, each a leg of the stool, hold up a good life. And when one of those legs is not there, or is a bit short on, or is not pulling its weight, then that stool gets very wobbly, and the good life that sits on top becomes vulnerable. We've had a couple of really, really good sessions today about the role of community and how families can engage with community. So today I'm going to look at the other relationship, and that's about family and service. So with the idea of right relationship, it's, in my mind, I mean, there are lots of papers on right relationship. It's an old Buddhist term about respecting and being in balance with each other, so that there is not a power imbalance. There is actually a relationship that works respectfully towards each other. And in that respect, then one gets a much better outcome. So I suggest there are 3 P's here. There's the practice of right relationship, there's the problem solving, and then there's the preparing to hand over. So there's a sense in the things I'm talking about here. So once one can practice right relationship, it can become part of how you do things. One needs a capacity to problem solve, and one needs also, if you're so good at this, you need to have others prepared to do it after you go to heaven. So, let's talk about planning. When one is planning for right relationship, we need a vision and a plan. Now, I'm sure you've got that message by now. And without a vision or a plan, someone else will do your vision and plan for you. And already you have lost that place in a right relationship. You have become impotent. So this is a non-negotiable. If you want right relationship with service, you need to know where you're going. You need to have decided who you are and what is the sort of life your family member wants. And part of that is deciding what is family business and what is service business. This, under the NDIS, there is a much greater capacity for that to become explicit. In old service world, services were known to start to take over family business, start to shape how the service was, how a person should be living, what sort of life they should have, and in the end, really taking over the vision. And it used to be very difficult to claw back your family business, to get it back, to say, no, stay out of that territory, this is my territory. And similarly, there is service business. Well, so let's just name what family business is. Family business is loving, it's irrational, it's crazy, it's messy, it's passionate, it's thinking big, it's thinking the impossible. We've heard it. We heard it from Jenny. We've heard it from other speakers. This is the family business. The service business is about doing things reliably, regularly, on time, for the right amount of money, negotiating with bureaucracies, and being of use, of being of benefit to the family. And that they're paid for it. So, inasmuch service is rented strangers into your life. And you may get to know them over time, but it's very unlikely that there will be a service provider in your life that you will know better than your family. And then the last piece of work before right relationship gets going, and that is deciding to work in right relationship. Now, this is a little lesson for me. I used to be quite obnoxious. Sometimes I still am. But what I had to learn it was a hard lesson because I was a pretty hurt, damaged parent. I didn't trust many people after going through the education system. I had felt betrayed, and I was a hard taskmaster. So there was no room for mistakes, there was no room for negotiation. I remember saying to a therapist, I said, I'll give you one interview, if you don't pass, you're out. That's a great right relationship. I scared the bejesus out of them. Okay, so I had to decide myself that I was going to work in right relationship, and that was respectfully to new people coming into our lives, to give people a fair go, and to share with them our vision and plan, and be patient while they got up to speed. So there is a decision one needs to make about this, that this is the way you're going to work. So, all right, so now how do we do this? This little 7-step process, I think is, I knew in my heart all along, but I'd never been able to name it. But I had the privilege to do a little research project last year with some families who were doing user direction, so, self-direction. And this is what they told me. And I had an aha moment. And I thought, oh, that made it into a 7-step process. So I'm sharing it with you today. So this isn't my brilliant idea, but some families that got together and showed me. We start with the person. Now, some of this is going to be very obvious, and I hope it's all obvious, but sometimes the obvious put into a simple process is very helpful. You can't do right relationship. You can't do user direction and in a right relationship way with service unless you start with the person. If there have been assumptions made about where that person is going to live, or what sort of service that's going to be, like the group home down the road, or the service up the hill, then it's unlikely that you're going to get right relationship, because that decision has been made. You need to start with the person, start the conversation. Who are you? What is your dream? What do you want? Okay. The next is about naming a vision and following that vision. So a vision and a plan, and sharing it. Now, you can have a vision, but if you don't share it, it's not much use to anyone. And I think part of this, in this process, I went back to the National Disability Insurance Scheme Act. And in that act, it actually says that it's everyone's responsibility to help build that vision. So it's not just the family's responsibility, it's the worker's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility to take on board that vision and improve that vision. It might start very small, but it can build over time. Well, the next is to make a good match. Now, I heard, today a couple of times about having good workers, and they don't necessarily have to have a Cert 3 in disability. My experience and the experience of Homes West has been that the best workers are the workers that get on really well with the individual, that respect the family culture, align with the family culture, and often, but not always, have an equivalent age bracket. For instance, we have one person supported in Homes West who lived in an institution for many years, but her passion is art, so most of her support workers are artists. They're artists from the community. They've learnt the other stuff, but this deep connection around creativity makes them the best support workers for Jane. The next step is about knowing the person well. So we actually see this as the time of when you learn about the person. So when a worker comes and says they know about something, they know how to support people with disability, it's unlikely that there's going to be a development of right relationship. If the worker comes and says, let me have time, give me support so that I can know this person well, then we're starting to build a good, respectful relationship. And for families, that might mean you need to put in extra resources to allow for that learning to happen, so that person can not only know, the worker can know that person well, but also to understand the context in which that person lives. Who is this family? Who are the informal networks around here? What is that person's passion? So that's what we see as the training, the really important training for people, for workers in a service. And then there is a process of building trust over time. Trust doesn't just suddenly happen. Trust is built over time. There are processes around building trust, and it takes time, it takes energy, it takes meeting, it takes face-to-face. But what can happen is that person, the support worker, can develop a discernment to make good decisions with no one else around. Because they know, if you go back to the red one, they know the person well, they know the family, and going back to the one before, that they're a good match and they want to be in the job, and there's a synergy, and they go back a step. First they understand the vision. So you can see how these steps build on each other. So when you get to step 5, you might find that the person, when the trust is built, then you can start to get a real discernment happening and a real creativity happening around that support. Next one is solving problems. I've just put locally here, but there's 3 words: quickly, locally, and creatively. The sooner problems are solved, the sooner you can move on. And when problems take a while to resolve, they get bigger. So if you can work out a strategy where problems can be solved within a heartbeat, over the mobile, you're on the site ready to sort it out, that you've got strategies to deal with problems really quickly, then you will move on faster. So I hear of terrible examples in traditional services where the problem is then taken up the line because no one else can solve it or hasn't got authority to solve it, and families are hung out to dry, let alone the person with disability in the centre of all of this. So the delegation of problem solving needs to be as close as possible to the person. Ideally, the person being assisted to solve that problem themselves, but that it's quick, it's local, and it's creative. So what can we do here to fix this? The last one is the building of resilience. If this process is working well, over time, families and individuals will become more resilient. They will need, in some cases, less service, not more. They will be able to do each of those steps better. They will become able to take the knocks in life better. So in this regard, if people are not becoming resilient, if they're becoming less resilient, then the process has faltered somewhere along the way, and it's worth going back to what is that? Are the problems not being solved? Are the problems actually damaging people? If they're not damaging people, have you lost trust with the service? Is there not trust there? Okay. And so it's going back to those steps in an orderly manner to try and work out what has gone wrong here. And then going forward again. So it's an iterative process. So for example, if you feel you no longer trust the service, then maybe the service doesn't know the person well. Or maybe you have the wrong people. You maybe have the wrong people. So you get rid of those people and get new people and find people who are a good match. Or perhaps if you go step back a step, you may not have shared the vision well enough. So it just gives families a framework to start thinking through, how do you build that right relationship? What is it? Which part of those steps is working well, is not working well, and to be able to go back and sort it out. So I hope that's useful to you. I now that I know it, I use it all the time when working with Sue. Okay, so just a few broad points about the practice of right relationship. One is that it is an intentional practice. It is a conscious, intentional practice. It is like cooking, it is like making love. You get better at it over time. Okay? There is no great manual, there's no instruction manual. You start at the beginning, you make mistakes, and you get better over time. The second is that it's important to keep close to the action. So even if you are, it's knowing what is going on. So you can pick up and you can be conscious of what is happening, which stage are you at in the process, which part isn't working quite well. Are you not trusting? Okay? Are you there to solve the problems? Is the vision still relevant? So it's about being close to the action. Again, it's about solving the problems quickly, locally, and creatively. And I'm just going to go on a little bit more about that because I think sometimes it's a toughie, that one. The last one is about keeping planning and being ready for spontaneous opportunities. Because once you start this, it becomes a positive energy. When you're working in a trusting and positive way, then opportunities start to come your way. And that's when you need to be ready and spontaneous to take advantage of them. I've just put this picture up of Mina's support. It was what we call the house meeting. One of the things in all of this is that we just found we needed to keep talking, keep sharing, keep talking. Now, some of this is counterintuitive for Australians. There's family business that you keep to yourself. But this can be done in an intentional and not intrusive way to family. It's about sharing with the workers. In this picture, we have some workers. We have Mina's flatmate, and we have the coordinator of the service, and my husband and me. So we're gathering around a table. A round table's a good thing because there's no hierarchy. Food is a good thing. We have Mary here from Hyderabad. She used to cook up a storm. And we can do it in a very succinct way, taking notes, sharing what's gone on in the past month, what's going to happen in the next month, affirming people in what they're doing and reminding them of what the vision is for MENA. So it's a very, it sounds pretty ordinary really, but I need to say that this discipline of a monthly gathering of everyone around a table was fundamental in keeping an intentionality and a clarity around what was right relationship. Now, the solving problems quickly, locally and creatively. It sounds, oh, that's easy. But I know the hurt. I know the hurt of betrayal. I know the hurt of being let down. I know the hurt that you've all had around just bad things happening. And I'm going to suggest to you a little process to keep you moving along, because none of you can afford to sit on a problem. The first step is to name it. Okay, Mary did not turn up for work and really let my daughter down. That's what happened. She did not turn up to work when she said she would, and she let my daughter down, and my daughter was at risk. Okay. Second, Emote The Beach. I am so angry I could screw her scrawny little neck. Right? And you punch out a wall, have a gin and tonic, and I think I said kick the cat at one meeting, at one of these things, and that wasn't appropriate. But people of my age, you know what that is. Okay, so you get really angry, you do whatever, right? We each have our own idiosyncratic way. But do it, okay? Don't sit on it and be nice, okay? Because you'll come out in boils. Right. The next one is to reflect. So before you do anything, and particularly if you've been particularly angry, take a bit of time out. Okay, don't go and ring the minister. Not a good look. Don't shout at the social worker. That was my best. And just reflect. Take a little time out. What can be done about this? Mary has done this twice before. She's gone, right? I know she's nice, I know she needs the money, I know it's not a good time, but hello, who is the centre of this? It is my daughter, and this is not going to happen again, right? So, at this point, you make up your mind. You make up your mind what you're going to do. It might be a toughie, but you take your time and you make up your mind. And then you do it, right? You do it. Hi, Mary. I don't need your services anymore. I'm quite happy to write you a reference. Thank you very much. But you did not turn up. You left my daughter in a very risky situation, and I cannot afford this to happen again. Bye-bye. Okay? You've done it. That was tough, but I did it. I did it. And then you review. You might get some others in. Say, now, did I do that right? Was that a fair thing to do? Because it's going to happen again sometime. Okay? Because every time you get better at this, but you don't get better on your own. It's very helpful to reflect then, or review. Just review what you did for a certain problem. Now, why I'm saying this is because I think that it's very risky for families to stop at any one of these points, because if you stop, the next problem will come along and we'll build on it. So we'll quickly go through that. If you never name what's happening, you go into denial, you've got a problem. If you never emote, you've got a problem. The boil thing, right? The cancer thing. Okay. If you never reflect and you just get on the phone and shout at everyone when you're angry, then you've also got a problem. You get a rep. Okay. Even if you never act and you're a gunner, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, then you get very, very frustrated with yourself and everyone gets frustrated with you. Okay, and then if you never think through what actually happened and look at it and learn from it, you will do the same thing again. Okay, this is very basic. And can I say, I got really good at it. I can name, emote, reflect, act, and review in 24 hours. Because I was having a lot of problems at the time and I couldn't afford to waste a minute because the next one was coming round the corner. Okay. So I'm going to just go on to the last one here, and that's the dying thing. 1996. Mum and Dad of Susan, over here on the right, and there's me looking pretty daggy with long hair in a red jacket, and Susan's circle. This is 20 years ago. I think the circle had been going for about 5 years, and we were doing a bit of a planning session for Susan. Now, Joan, the parent, was a leader. She started Homes West, and she knew she was going to die. She knew this, and so she started to write everything down. So she started to plan for her demise, and this is what she did. She wrote everything down. Everything was in her head, right? Who's got it all in your head? Right. You need to write it down, because when you're dead, you can't tell anybody. Now, Susan had a hysterectomy in 1984. Nobody knew until she wrote it down. Okay, very important information. 2012, we're having another planning session here. And within 4 years, Tommy's dead. Okay? And Joan now has dementia. Joan doesn't remember. So we have her notes. We have her plans. They're very clear, because over the last 25 years, she's been telling us. In that picture 20 years ago, a lot of the people aren't in this picture. So the circle of support that Joan set up isn't the same circle of support 20 years later. These young people here live in the neighbourhood, okay? Some of the people in the old picture have become very ill themselves or have moved from town. This was 2012. Now, some of these have moved as well, and we have new members of the circle in. But the knowledge, the vision, the information has been handed on. So we're now at a point, quite quickly, since 2012, that we don't have Joan and Tom to tell us anymore. But we know deeply what the future will be for Susan, and we are now responsible. So I'm just going to finish with one little picture here. This is Mina again. We go back to Mina. This is only a few months before she died. But it's a lovely photo, and I look at it often because it is, for me, the epitome of right relationship. Here she is at Caloundra, her favourite hangout. She's with 3 people, 3 women. One of them is a worker. One of them is a worker who is no longer a worker, but has come as a friend. And the other one is a friend of that friend. And they're at the beach. They've been at the beach for a week. Mina is having very significant seizures that require hospitalisation. Her life is very vulnerable. But I have, as a family member, handed over the trust to these folk who they're all working together as in right relationship. They know they can do the tube feeding, they can do the emergency medication when seizures happen. They know how to hoist, they know how to keep Mina hydrated, they know what to do when the ambulance comes. And they're there having the time of their lives. So in this regard, I see this is the outcome of working respectfully with service, with community, with family together in right relationship.